Again, my name is Chelsea Chi. I'm a diversity coordinator for New Mexico EPSCoR. New Mexico EPSCoR is the experimental program to stimulate competitive research. We are a National Science Foundation funded program, and basically, we're here to help build New Mexico's research capacity. So, next, we will hear from Tara, our other organizer.
Hi everyone, my name is Tara Hackle and I work here at the University of New Mexico's main campus. Specifically, I work at the STEM Collaborative Center. And the STEM Collaborative Center has similar missions to New Mexico EPSCoR, where Chelsea works, but we put on outside of classroom opportunities for students to engage with science, research, or their community. So this workshop is a really great example of some of the events that we put on. We also put on things like short-term research projects with faculty and semester-long mentoring programs. So if you're interested in learning more about our events, they're free for all UNM undergraduate students. And so you can sign up or learn more at stemuniversity.unm.edu. So I'm excited to get started with our Diverse Families in STEM panel today. Thank you to the panelists for signing up to be here and share your experiences. We have a great lineup of people who've had various experiences with family, with education, and work, all related to STEM. And so in today's sessions, they're going to share a little bit about their own stories, but also some of the challenges that they've experienced and some of the strategies that they've used to confront these challenges. So Chelsea, I'm going to turn it back over to you to lead us through introductions.
Yeah, thank you, Tara. So let's give the panelists a little bit of time to introduce themselves, and we'll start with Audrey. Oh, one other thing. Audrey is not, you can't see Audrey's face, but you can hear her. So when she is at the in-person meeting, then you will know by process of elimination who she is. Audrey?
Hello, everybody. Like she said, my name is Audrey Aragon, and I am from here at Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I am a UNM alumni. I have a dual concentration MBA in Management Information Systems and Information Assurance, and my undergrad is in English. I'm actually a software systems engineer at Sandia National Laboratories, where I've been employed for almost 13 years. So I got hired as a Sandia student when I was 19 years old, and really being employed here at Sandia really made me find out what I wanted as a career. I was surrounded by engineers and computers, and I wanted to learn all that I could, and I wanted to really remain employed by such a great company. Going to school was difficult at times. I solely supported myself. I worked 2 jobs. I went to school full time the entire time for 8 years. So it was really exhausting, but I knew what I wanted, and it really pushed me to finish. So I was with my husband all through grad school. We held off getting married and having kids until I was done with school, and we have now been married for 4 years, and we have a beautiful 2-year-old daughter.
Thank you. That was a great story. And we'll hear more from Audrey soon, but I'd like to move on to Cherie.
Yeah. So hi everybody, I'm Sherry DeVore. I'm originally from Crown Point, New Mexico, which is located on the eastern flank of the Diné Nation. I'm currently a PhD student in the Department of Civil Engineering at UNM. I got my master's in hydroscience, also at this institution, and then my undergrad was in environmental science. And so I think that well, my research interests are in examining uranium mine waste legacy near Native American communities. So some of our sites now include Laguna Pueblo, Blue Gap Tachi, and coming shortly, Cheyenne River in South Dakota. And so I'm a mother of 2 children, divorced, so a lot of the challenges there have to do with scheduling and timing, and I wanted to make sure that my children and other young children that were interested in science had an actual, like, real, tangible, in-person role model that, you know, doing science, and, you know, so they could see that it's possible for them too.
Thank you for that. We will now move on to Paul.
Okay. My name is Paul Durfee. Currently I'm a graduate student in the biomedical engineering department. Oh, I was born in California, but I grew up in New Mexico. Um, and let's see, I got my undergraduate here at UNM in biochemistry, and then I worked for a lot of years trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Then I ended up getting a master's degree in nanoscience and microsystems, and still didn't know what I wanted to do, so I kept going, and now I'm working on a PhD in biomedical engineering. Specifically, the research I work on is targeted drug delivery. The easiest way to describe it is we try to create a system that will sort of like treat cancer or chemotherapy with no side effects, and we do that making little nano vehicles. I can talk more about that later, maybe at the session in April. Let's see. I'm married to my lovely wife, Marisa. We have three boys, 8, 5, and we have a baby now. So it's definitely a pretty busy household with sports and just everything. It's pretty chaotic, but also working on my graduate work through this. And yeah, I think, is that a good description?
Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
Okay. And last but not least, Clarissa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Clarissa Sorensen Unruh, and I'm trying to mute myself because the wall next to me is really loud. Sorry about that. Like I said, my name is Clarissa Sorensen Unruh, and I have a BS in biochemistry from Trinity University and in San Antonio, Texas, and I have a master's in organic chemistry from UNM. I am currently getting a master's I'm actually a PhD in statistics student at the moment, and am planning to go to master's in statistics and a PhD in learning sciences. So I'm going to have way more degrees than I need by the time I'm done. I teach full-time at CNM as a chemistry professor, and that's where I am at the moment. And I have a lovely wife. Her name is Karen Sorensen Unruh, and she is in the math department at UNM. She's a lecturer there, and we have a son. His name is Jack, and he's almost 10, which is very exciting. My research interests tend to be educationally based, so I tend to like assessment and really adding statistical modeling to the educational assessment that's already in the field at the moment. And then I just like to see whether my students learned anything. I've been in this job for 14 years, and I still don't always know. And so to make that better would be really good. And that's where we are.
Great.
I'll turn it back to you, Chelsea.
Yeah, thank you all for those introductions. So like I said before, Tara, and I created 3 questions for you all, and we sent those to you ahead of time, so hopefully you have an idea of how you're going to answer those. So we'll start with the first question, and that is, what does your average day look like? Include your family and your education, your work, and how those all, what kind of time demands and responsibilities you have throughout the day. So we'll start again with Audrey.
Okay, so my average day is waking up at 5 a.m. every day and getting to work by 6:30 in the morning. My husband and I both go in early because we work 9-hour days so that we can get every other Friday off, which we have opposite Fridays. That way our 2-year-old can spend less time in daycare. So we really do that for her, and we basically also go in early so that we can also have time for ourselves. So when I come to work and I'm in meetings all the time, and after work I go to the gym, and then I go pick up my baby from daycare, and then I get home, and then my husband goes to the gym, and then I make dinner, and then I play with the baby, and then we get our stuff ready for the next day, and then we go to bed, and then we start all over again. And really, that's what we do every day. It's the same, very predictable.
And what about your weekends?
At the weekends, well, I feel like every Sunday is like working on the house day. So really, we only have one day out of the week, which is Saturday, to do whatever we want. And then Sundays is always grocery shopping and washing clothes. and getting ready for the week. So it's completely different now with a 2-year-old. Before, when it was just us, it was, I felt like we were always going to the movies and eating out, and now it's we don't do that.
Thanks. You will probably see my reaction to a lot of different things. So, wow, that's good to know. Sherry?
Okay, so get up anywhere between 5:30 and 6 and get the kids ready for school and fed and lunches made. And their school starts relatively early. I'm not sure if this is the case for most APS schools, but 7:45 to get them to school, and then I go to work. And workload really depends a lot on our experiments and my research team's research objectives. So now I'm working with our postdoc, her name is Lucia Rodriguez, and our other PhD student, her name is Carmen Vasquez. And we're working on extracting DNA from microbes in plant roots and in sediments. And between that lab work, I do my graduate coursework, so I'm enrolled in 9 credit hours this semester. Usually I leave by 5:15, except for Mondays. I have class to 7 p.m. So I run to daycare and get the kids and get them home and get them fed, get their homework done, and if I have time, we go to my kung fu classes in the evening, which I haven't been able to do lately as much as I'd like, but up to 3 times a week. So whether or not it's Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, those sessions can go kind of late. And so if I have a friend available, they'll either watch the kids, or the kids will go with their dad, or the kids will tag along with me, worst case scenario. And so our day ends at 8:39, and then get them to bed, and then I work on homework for, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours afterwards. So bedtime is, earliest time is midnight, 1 o'clock, and then start the day over again.
Wow.
Yeah. I think we should all just give you guys an award already. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. Paul?
Okay, actually, I have a pretty predictable routine too. It's just a lot of times when you have a lot of kids, it's just better to have a routine and just try to stick to it. So I aim for waking up at around 6 o'clock, but I usually hit the snooze around 3 or 4 times on average before I actually get up. And first thing I do is I drink a cup of coffee. Then I wake up the 2 big boys because they're going to school. And I make them breakfast and get them ready for school. Just kind of remind them over and over again, tell them the same thing, and it's tough when they're 5 and 8. Once they get older, they want to do everything else, not what you tell them to do. But eventually, I do get them to eat their food and dressed, and then I make their lunch while I'm doing that. Meanwhile, my wife is either trying to keep our baby asleep or just keeping him entertained until I can get the boys out the door. So my wife actually, she's a scientist too, and she volunteers at their school right now. She does things like teaching science, like she actually tries to do a lot of STEM work just in elementary school. So she volunteers 4 days out of the week in the morning. So and then I spend that time with the baby, and we play or do whatever, just kind of get him ready for the day, or I'll feed him. After that, I take the baby to school, to where my wife is, and then she works in the library over there a little bit longer. So she's actually decided to take a little time off while we have a new baby, and she'll probably go back to work, or I don't know, if we decide to be crazy and have 4 kids, she might take a little more time off. But after that, usually I'll go to the gym just for at least an hour a day. If I don't do that, I go crazy. So and I'm noticing there's like an exercise theme here that seems to be good. I think it's definitely a great stress reliever, and it really helps. But after that, it's similar to Cherie. It all depends on what experiments I'm working on. Luckily, I'm sort of at the stage now where I'm not taking any more coursework. It's mostly just research, research, research. So it's more like a job at this point. So sometimes, depending on last week, for example, I was here till 2 o'clock in the morning doing experiments. But that's not all the time. So, but I try to usually leave around 6 o'clock, go home, and either have a baby handed off to me and work with the boys to get them to sort of just either homework or whatever, while we prepare dinner, and then we eat. We always try to eat as a family, and after that, just trying to get the boys to bed, which is also very difficult. They definitely fight that every step of the way. But on the weekends, we actually save Sundays for homework. We basically make our boys sit down and do all of their homework for the entire week, just because it's so much easier. Because during the week, so my wife is the head coach of their basketball team. I'm the assistant coach. And in soccer, she also coaches, and I'm the referee. So we are very involved in all of their sports. So weekends are sports. Even during the week, there are 4 different practices during the week that we have to attend. So just trying to balance all that out can be tough. But yeah, so just that's kind of how our weekends are. And I'll do a lot of like reading papers and stuff at night, but mostly I try not to work when I'm home. I try to get all my work done here at the university. I find that it's better if I can spend more time sort of paying attention to my family and enjoying this time while they're young. So yeah.
Okay. I'm taking tons of notes, everyone. And last, we have Clarissa.
All right. So I'm an academic, so I have no idea what work-life balance really is. So let's preface it with that. The only time, so I wake up anywhere between 4 o'clock in the morning and 5:30, if we kind of have a moment. My son is usually up by 5:30 in the morning, so he's an early riser. And he gets up, and we usually are making breakfast and doing that. One person usually is in the shower, or the other person makes tea and does the breakfast things. And then we switch, and the other person goes and takes a shower. I have classes every morning at 7:30 in the morning this semester. So I work exclusively from 7:30 to 10:30 a.m. in the morning this semester, mainly because I had no idea what the UNM schedule would be, and the math department sometimes likes to change the schedule 2 days before it, goes live, or actually 2 days before the semester starts. So, it's just a real problem to try and figure out what the schedule should be or what have you. So I did my schedule pretty regularly in the morning. It varies depending on what day. Some days I'm doing lectures, some days I'm doing labs. And then after I'm done, I have office hours for an 1.5-hour block. And then after that, I have really a free-for-all. I have lunches, I have meetings, I have lots of things going on. So I'm writing, I have a statistics class that is on Tuesdays and Thursdays that I'm doing remotely. And I have, I'm writing a Title V grant at the moment between UNM and CNM, and I just do a lot in terms of there's symposia to organize for national meetings. There's all kinds of fun to be had. So in terms of what I'm doing, I usually am up. We do meet for dinner. We have dinner together, and that's pretty awesome. And then, and so I tend to take the morning, and Karen tends to teach in the afternoon. We make sure we have dinner together, and then we're getting Jack to do homework or to do any number of things, basically trying to get him off the iPad all the time is the real crux of everything. And then by the time we are done with that, we're kind of either falling asleep. Jack goes to bed at, Jack is my son, by the way, that's the 10-year-old. Sorry, I didn't preface that. Jack goes to bed at like 8:30, and Karen sometimes stays up until midnight. Sometimes I'm asleep at 6 o'clock on the couch, and I'm up at 8:30 to put him to bed, and then I'm up until 2 o'clock in the morning doing social media and replying to student emails and all of my other stuff that's going on. Sometimes I'm in bed at 8:30. It just depends on the day. And then we get up and do something kind of different and the same again. So Fridays I do C&M glass videos for my YouTube channel. So that makes Fridays a little bit easier. C&M glass videos are me writing on a board. It's very Picasso. It's very fun. All right, that's my whole thing.
Okay.
Do you want to hear about weekends? I don't
Sure.
think you really do.
And we didn't get to hear Sherry's weekend stories too.
Sherry,
What kind
it's
of
all you.
stories?
What's that?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
So I'm assuming that some of the things that you do spill over to the weekend. How is it a little different?
Yeah, weekends are definitely catch-up time for me for my homework and the kids' homework, and because I'm working towards a black belt in Kung Fu, anything I've missed during the week for my workouts and the new material, I have to catch up on Saturday. And so usually that's from 9 a.m. to, if there are like seminars and stuff, to 2 p.m. And thankfully we have our parenting plan set up that the kids go with their dad most weekends. And so they're able to spend time with him, and he helps with homework and does activities with them on weekends. So that's definitely catch up on Sherry's stuff time, and if there's any like overlap from their stuff when they get home with me, then we'll go ahead and do that at home too on Sunday. And then laundry and definitely chores too.
Okay. Clarissa, do you have anything you want to add for your weekends?
Weekends are when we get ambitious. So we go out and like, oh, let's explore New Mexico and go to Tent Rocks or whatever if it's nice weather. But that doesn't happen every weekend. Sometimes we get on a roll, and every weekend we're being like, wow, we went to White Sands this weekend. But most of the time we're hanging out, doing stuff in the yard, doing chores, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so some key things that I got are having a routine, sticking to it, and it sounds like there's also some flexibility in all of that because not everything will go to plan, I think. Exercising, coffee, and I've seen like one of the themes as being waking up early and sometimes even going to bed late. So there's really no like amount of sleep that you all have gotten that is recommended, right? So the recommended amount of sleep is like 8 to 9 hours a day or night, and so that doesn't seem like that's part of that. And then one other thing that I also pulled out was having dinners together with your family. Um, and it seems like the weekend is a time for like Sherry said, catching up and doing chores and also trying to get maybe even ahead of the next week. Okay. Um, Tara, is there anything you like to add before we move on to the next question?
I was just going to compliment you on your summary. That was really great.
Thanks. There's a lot of stuff in between, but it's pretty much what I got. Okay.
I think for Chelsea and I in planning this, we both talked about how we don't have kids, how we have families, but you know, my kids are covered in fur. They're not little humans, so they need a little bit less work. So it's interesting to hear how some of my life overlaps with yours about still wanting to spend time with my partner, but also needing to do homework. So dinners are definitely a thing that we do together, but like getting kids to go to bed is not something that has to work into my routine. So it's interesting to see the overlaps and then also where it diverges.
Yeah, thank you for all of that. Okay, so on to our second question. This one is what are some of the past or current challenges you have in facilitating all of the different aspects of your life at the same time? So, Audrey?
Okay, so as we know, like the hardest part is the balancing, and I think, you know, we all have work and our family, and not just our spouse and our kids, but like your siblings and your parents, and then of course, and then yourself. I think we tend to forget about ourselves from time to time. It seems like most of us exercise and work out, but I think like for me in the beginning, it was kind of like a guilt thing, like you shouldn't be doing things for yourself, or other people tell you, you shouldn't be doing that, or you should be with your kids, or so I think the hardest or part of the challenging things for me is to learn when to tell other people that I don't have time for them, or I don't have time to do that, or even to stand by what you're doing. So like I said, we work out every day, and we chose that that's what we're going to do for ourselves. And in doing that, I've realized that that makes me happier, and it makes me have energy to do all the other things I do. Doing all this stuff is exhausting. And we don't get the full 8 hours of sleep. Sometimes it's 5.5, 6 hours. And you're tired. But oddly enough, working out gives me the energy to do everything. And so, I think too is the hardest part is telling parents or my family that I have my mom, and she always tells me, why haven't you called me? Why haven't you hung out with me? Or why? And I'm like, Mom, we're so busy. We have all this stuff to do. And that was really, I think, a challenge for my mom as well, to realize that, we have our own lives. I have a baby now, and it's not just about, the family I had before, I guess is what I'm saying. So really, I think it's that, and then also it's just finding time for ourselves. I think that's one of the biggest challenges I have. Still to this day, I feel guilty leaving my daughter, even with my husband. I mean, I want to go get a pedicure, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I need to hurry up. Like, give me the express pedicure so I can hurry up and go home. And so it's one of those things where we just have to kind of put time for ourselves. That way we can be a happier us, so that everything else works well as well.
Thanks for that. Sherry?
Biggest challenge for me is spending enough time with my children. So I feel like if I'm not with them and they're not at daycare, um, making the big decision to get them early and bring them to class with me is difficult. Thankfully, though, I know my professors really well, and so they're definitely supportive of if I really need to bring them into class and set them, down with something to do for a few hours. And then I'm making plans to move back closer to UNM this summer, because I now live in Paradise Hills. And I chose that school to accommodate my son's speech therapy and extra support he needs with reading and writing. And so he just got really accustomed to his team there and his school, and I felt like really guilty about having to pull him out of that and then change him to a completely different school, different team. But I think it would make both my children's life and my life a little easier to shorten the commute time, which at this point is anywhere from like 45 minutes to an hour after, rush hour, if I need to be in rush hour. And so that would free up more time that I get to have with them. And so that's definitely a plan. Commuting, and then as our previous person just said, making time for yourself is really important, and remembering to do simple things like eating, setting timers to eat, and then just taking care of yourself. And in my case, it's really important to participate in cultural activities and ceremonies that happen very much far from Albuquerque. And so that extra travel time, either out of state or back to my home community, to support people that support me and to participate in ceremonies in different seasons, it's really difficult.
Thank you. Paul, what are
Okay.
some of your challenges?
some of my challenges. Well, first of all, those are the the first two people who spoke. That was, you know, I can feel like I've had some very similar experiences as well as, I really just admire just what they're doing anyway, just through all of this because I know it's really tough. One big challenge, like Cherie, I lived in Rio Rancho when I started graduate school, and the commute, it really is. It's like an hour to an hour and a half sometimes, and that was before like the Paseo overchange and everything.
Yeah.
And I started getting rid of my exercise routine and riding my bike because it actually took me an hour on my bike to ride from Rio Rancho to school. It took a little longer on the way back because it's uphill, but but I mean, I found that that was sort of one way that I could sort of put two things together. The exercise that I wanted to have and the commute. But recently, my wife and I we bought a house closer to the university, so now I'm only 20 minutes away, and that makes a huge difference. Being able to, because sometimes I have an experiment that's going to run for 3 hours, so I can go home for 2 hours and then come back and finish it up and then go home again. Um, One of the things that I find most difficult um, is when I go home and we've got so many things to do and the kids just want to play. They're like, hey Papa, can we do a board game or can we play some cards or can we play a video game? And I hate saying no. And I know one thing I'm trying to work on is just for 10 minutes. I can do it for 10 minutes. And a lot of times I'm just tired, but it's something I am working on right now, just so that I can say, yeah, I can sit down. We can do it for a little bit, but then I have to do this. So that's kind of been a challenge. And then like the whole sleep thing, sleep isn't that necessary. I've learned that. I haven't slept for the past 8 years. I mean, really slept. So anybody who doesn't have kids, let me tell you, enjoy the sleep while you have it because it's gone after you have kids. But again, we have several examples here of people who don't sleep, and we're doing okay. We're getting good degrees, and so it's possible. You can do it, and a lot of people do. There are a lot of parents in the world. Um, but yeah, that was sort of a challenge at first, and just like I think having enough time to spend with my wife too. Before our littlest one was born, we were able to spend a lot more time after we'd get the baby or the kids to sleep. We'd have the nights together. And now it's sort of baby wakes up, needs to nurse, and then goes back to sleep. And there's not too much I can do to help there. I try, but he really wants his mama. But we still try to spend that time together, just the three of us, and we'll just spend our evenings together. But it would be nice to have more times like a date night, and we do have our families in town, which is really helpful. So both of our parents love taking care of the kids when they can. But we try not to be a burden on them as well because it is a lot of work taking care of someone else's kids. So we try to, do as much as we can with them, and keeping busy with all of the sports schedules. That's actually another challenge because if I'm, working late on an experiment, for example, last night basketball practice, my wife was coaching while wearing the baby on like with one of those like baby holders, and because I was 15 minutes late because of traffic. And I got there and she handed the baby over to me and she finished the practice. But just dealing with some of those things that we don't normally anticipate. We're always like kind of trying to be ready to solve those problems. One other thing too, I'd say that I heard was sort of communicating with family. Like, why don't you call us anymore? I can totally agree with that. I actually, the way I solve that is I set timers every week. I have one surviving grandparent, my nanny. I call her every Tuesday night, and just to say hi, just to say all the kids are okay, and she loves it. And it makes her day, and it makes my day too. So it's really nice just to have an alarm because I forget so many times. So just being able to set alarms is another way that I've been able to do that. So yeah, I think those are kind of the challenges that come to mind right now.
Okay, thanks. Clarissa, anything else to add?
So in terms of current challenges, I would reiterate the relationships with family in town. I really, my personal time is not as much spent going to the gym. I walk between UNM and CNM. Actually, I'm mostly running between UNM and CNM most of the time. But in terms of like physical activity or what have you, my two biggest challenges are just making sure I have all of my relationships with all of my family kind of set, and also making sure that my son doesn't have too much screen time, which is super easy to do, right? Just in terms of, gosh, that iPad is awfully convenient. So in terms of that, I don't really have too much to add past that. What I was thinking about when I saw this was like when I was pregnant with Jack. 10 years ago, I was teaching full time and I taught 6 classes each semester, fall and spring, and then took the summer off. And that was the only time I had to take off. And I was teaching labs and lectures and all of that jazz. And then nursing the next year was really, really interesting. Mainly because, you know, there was, of course, the need to get home in a timely fashion very quickly. And there was a bit of hell to pay if I didn't. So in terms of, you know, just making all of that work, that was a particularly challenging time, not just for the sleep deprivation, which was worse than it is now, but in terms of making all of the different pieces come together to make that work. But yeah, I actually have a fairly nice life, I have to say. So I was like seeing all of your challenges, and I was like, ouch, that, yeah, I remember that. I'm pretty good.
Thank you. So I have a list of things that you all have shared, and one is balancing your time with your partner, your spouse, and your family. Not so much the family in your household, but outside of your household, and your children, spending time with them, but also spending time on yourself and trying to find out where that will come from. Um, One thing that I kind of have a problem with or an issue with, and it's a little similar, is learning when to say you don't have time. And I think that's something to learn how to master as soon as you can, but also saying it in a way, um, in a nice way, I guess, so people can understand where you're coming from. Um, and we'll go into talking about the other side of these challenges. And I have a little bit of pieces that I pulled from what you all said too to get the conversation starting. But let's see, what else do I have here? Yeah, it's pretty much just trying to find time, I guess, for a lot of the things that you have going on. So we didn't want to leave the conversation there in talking about and challenges and signing off. We want to now move on to talking about some strategies and resources that you all have used to overcome some of the challenges that you shared, but also that you've heard, and how effective those are. And this is one of the it's one of the more important pieces, I believe, of the questions that we were asking, because we want to share and be able to give some students that we work with and maybe even our coworkers some tools that they can use for their own selves that maybe you may have found in a treasure box or underneath a rock that we don't know where those are. So a couple of things that I heard, just again to get the conversation starting, is hold on, let me find my notes here. Having a timer, and I think that sounds like it's something that people have used to eat, also to call your grandparents or even your parents, and maybe I'm going to do that too, because I get the when are you going to call me? You haven't called me in like 3 days kind of thing. And then the other is trying to find ways to put two of the things that you need to do together. And so you hit two birds with one stone, as they say. And I'm not trying to be like that's kind of a bad analogy, because it's kind of mean in a way. So in an unmean way, taking care of two things at the same time. So the commute piece and being able to exercise as you're commuting over via using your bicycle. So those are two of the things that I was able to catch from that. And so, Audrey, what kind of strategies and resources have you been able to come across and take advantage of to help you um, with having a work family, school family balance?
Well, just like others mentioned, it's definitely a schedule. I'm definitely like a schedule person. Even when I was in school, I always was taking 6 classes, and I'm like, Monday night is classes homework, Tuesday night I'm doing this classes homework, and so I've just always been like that, and I feel like I get more done that way. Otherwise, I think I feel overwhelmed, and I feel like I have so many things to do. I'm one of those people, like if I have so much things to do, I don't know where to start, and so I always tend to like write down what it is that needs to be done and when I'm going to do it. And so I really think that that's what works for us, and kind of what my goal is, right? So I'm one of those moms that gets really weird about leaving my baby. Like I'm still attached to her, and so going into work at 6 in the morning is something I did so that I'm like, well, I'm not missing that hour with her in the morning because she's sleeping anyway, and then I'll just go to the gym and I would just pick her up from daycare like I used to before, and just go to the gym, and so that's how like I fit in my stuff, and so. Um, I just know that at certain times that's just what I do. Like you just fit it in, just that's your schedule and that's what happens. The same thing what somebody was saying earlier is like two birds with one stone is like with my mom. My mom gets really hurt that I don't call her, and so Sandia is a really big place. It's like its own city, and so when I have meetings, I'm walking like half a mile to the next building, and so I always take my cell phone with me and I call people at that time. So I'm calling my mom, and she already knows that I'm probably on my way to my next meeting, and I'm calling her just to talk to her. And so it's just one of those things. I just, there's always something. I mean, I don't hang out with my friends, and so it's just something that we just decided recently. I'm thinking, well, why don't we every second Friday we all hang out? Or so that's just something for me. Is if I don't say that I'm going to do something on a particular time and day, then it's probably not going to happen. And so that's just what I do. I just designate a certain time for something, and I just stick to it. Otherwise, things probably wouldn't get done, and that goes for everything. Even my husband and I, we know that every Friday night we go out to eat. Me, him, and the baby. Saturday like I said, we leave it open to whatever we like, and then Sunday is work day, and so there's just always something to do, and really you're not really going to be able to do it all, but you have to find out what the most important things are, and then you just have to find time for it, I guess. It's really hard. I mean, like I said, there's always something.
Hmm. Wow, thank you for that. So scheduling is important. Sherry, do you have anything else to add?
No, I mean, I'm just going to have to reiterate that calendars and reminders are really important. And then also willing to be really flexible.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's difficult to have my schedule really set, really structured, and then have something fall through and not feel disappointed about it or get down about it. So kind of just mentally prepping myself for that, and then being prepared for anything that could go wrong, and they do. So no magic beans or
Darn it.
tricks. I wish it's just scheduling and just being really pragmatic about how you do things throughout the day.
Okay.
I have a question to tack on to scheduling because I feel like I wasn't born knowing how to run a calendar. So how did you all get practice, or what mistakes did you have along the way of learning how to schedule in a way that was flexible and responsive?
I can quickly say that I learned it at work because people like to document things through email and with schedule invites. And so I've learned to do that quite meticulously. And then even with like coffee dates with friends, sometimes I have to remind myself a week ahead that I'm going to meet somebody somewhere.
You like throw a
I
little
live,
reminder on before to remind yourself.
Right.
Yeah,
I live
cell
my
phones
best life.
made that
Oh,
really helpful. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say with cell phones, I mean, you just put it into your calendar and it's it'll set an alarm and it's just so convenient now.
hmm yeah, I was gonna say I live my best life through Google notifications. So,
The same for me as Audrey. Is I think like someone was saying earlier with work. So with I've been here at Sandia since I was 19, and so we always did everything on Outlook. But oddly enough, like when it comes to my life, I don't do anything on my calendar. I don't use my phone calendar unless it's like a reminder, like you were saying. So like I have a reminder to cancel like a subscription or something. I put that in my calendar to remind me. But I always do like everything on paper, which is odd. So like for instance, when I was in school and I had so much to do, I would write when everything is due. And I did this with my bills also back in the day, but now I have that in Excel. But anyway, so I would write down like when something was due and how many hours it would take, and then I would break it up per day. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do just for today? And I just write that on a piece of paper. So I mean, I guess it really depends.
So breaking down big goals into smaller goals, that's definitely something I've had to learn because when you have a 20-page paper due by the end of the semester, you're not going to finish that in a week. So thinking about how can I do small chunks, like maybe I can write the intro during one homework session or the conclusion during another. So I hear you, breaking down stuff.
I do the same sort of thing that Audrey's talking about a lot of times because it's just so satisfying to cross something off a list. So a lot of times, if I do have like 10 experiments that need to be done during the week, I'll write them all down and then include anything else that needs to be done, and I can just go through that list and just keep crossing things off. And I just carry this like wrinkled up piece of paper with me everywhere until I get it all done. And sometimes I have to rewrite it. But yeah, I find that I still end up doing that as well.
Here's
Yep,
my list right now.
that's
In my pocket.
that's funny. That's funny.
Okay. I think we were at Paul, right?
Oh,
Do you have
okay.
anything else you
Uh,
want to add?
yeah. Actually, I just thought of some other things. So a lot of us work in a pretty high stress environment. STEM fields are not known to be easy on us. Um, and trying not to take that stress home with you when your kids are acting pretty wild. What I've kind of I've learned is just not to like sweat the small stuff. If nobody's bleeding, nothing's broken, chances are it's not a big deal. So, treating things like, unless it's an emergency, it's not really worth getting worked up over. Because all of those little things will build up, and eventually, the stress it's too much, and a lot of times we just need to like relieve it somehow, which is again good reason for exercise. Uh, but I do think just trying to think like it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. We can work through it, whatever the problem is. It, it, it's if it's not life-threatening. So I try not to sweat the small stuff. Another thing too, I agree with everybody about being flexible. Even though I do set up calendars, like even for this thing, I totally forgot that we were doing this until I got an email reminder. So thank you to I think it was Clarissa who replied to the email, and I was like, oh, I need to like do this. So, but being flexible because I mean it's my wife actually is the reason that I use calendars. She started putting everything into calendars, and she's way better at organizing than I am. So a lot of times she just tells me like, I just know that like I'm probably going to have to do something, and I'm probably going to have something to do every day. So I'm always prepared to have something to do. Um, and so just being flexible so that I know that whatever I'm doing, I'm going to be busy, and it's going to be fine. So, and then another thing too, just about friends. So of all my friends that I grew up with, I'm the only one who had kids. Everybody decided not to have kids. So I was really worried, because once you have kids, you can't really do all the same things. But we have a really great group of friends that have actually stuck with us the entire time. They're totally involved in our children's lives. So when, for example, my buddy Noel, he's also in science with us. He's in the nanoscience program. he bought a rocket for my son for his birthday. And we just went down to an arroyo and shot rockets one day, and that's sort of how I hang out with my friends. We just talk about whatever we would talk about, but also we're still playing with my kids, and I think that's really nice if you have, friends that you can still involve with your family life, because, family life is a full-time job, and, whatever I end up doing with my friends is going to be with my kids now too, and it's worked out really well.
Okay, thanks. Clarissa?
By the way, Paul, I think it was Cherie that did the reminder, so thanks to Cherie. I think in terms of what everyone said, absolutely. I did not write down anything for the first, 25 years of my life, and now I'm older and I have to write down everything. So that's where the Google notifications came in. I actually had to learn from one of my peer learning facilitators when I was teaching at UNM how to do DL classes, even though I had taught them for 10 years, because I was like, how do you do this? And she's like, I Google remind everything. So I was like, oh, okay. I think that Google notifications are really important. I think double hitting things is really important for me. The reason why I'm going from a PhD in statistics to a PhD in learning sciences is because my professional life and my graduate life were not overlapping the way I needed them to in order to make my life easier. Last semester I spent doing 6 credit hours of statistics graduate work, and I found myself writing NSF grants, grant proposals, and organizing symposia and writing papers on top of that. And that was, in addition to teaching 6 classes, that's a heck of a lot of work that I'm just doing that isn't overlapping in any way, shape, or form. So I think kind of this idea of overlapping your goals as much as you possibly can and getting a 2-for-1 deal kind of, or a 3-for-1 deal is really super important. For me, the way I keep on going is because my spouse, my wife, is incredible. We're incredibly good at kind of moving in tandem with one another. We're kind of a team in everything, and it makes it really easy for me to pursue all of the things that I'm doing, and for her to pursue all the things she's doing. If she's working, then I'm playing with Jack or figuring out what he's doing with his homework. If I'm working, then she's doing the same thing. So, or doing the Jack piece. So I think there's a lot of pieces that you can work on, but it takes time, and it takes boundary work. There's a lot of boundary work that has to happen in terms of saying no or saying yes to the things that are important to you. And when you are passionate about something and you say yes to the right things, then it just builds and builds and builds. And that's kind of where my life has been.
Okay. I do have one more question, and it's definitely part of this, but do you have any apps or organizations slash resources that you have taken advantage of either on campus, at Sandia, or in the city of Albuquerque that you think would be great? One thing might be they have free zoo days for families. I don't know if that happens, but maybe they do.
Yes.
And this is just an open question.
I would say that one thing that we use as far as apps are concerned, we use Mint, mint.com. It's a financial app. We find that that's really helpful because we have credit cards, we have mortgage, we have investments. We've got a lot of different places where our money goes. And having that all sort of in one thing does make it easy to remember to pay the bills and to do all those things. So I'd say that's pretty useful. It's free.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Yeah. As far as financial stuff goes, we automated everything when Jack was new, and that was really super helpful. You have to make sure that there's money in the account to do that, but automating as much as possible is really nice if you can.
I completely agree. I pay no bills on my own. They all come out.
Just magically get it done.
I'm just like, and you know what really helps with that though also, so um, like all the bills, if you, and I've done this since I was in an undergrad, and this helped because I felt like I was, because I did everything myself, so I paid everything myself. It was real stressful, and so remembering to pay stuff was like just another added stress. And so anyway, but if you add everything up that you have to pay, and then you just divide that up by how many paychecks you get a month, and just make sure you put that in the account, then you don't have to worry about money being in the account, right? So it just comes out and you don't have to worry about money being in there, right? Because you're just automatically putting it in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really use apps besides like mail and calendar, but in terms of keeping track of my kiddos, there's this app called Class Dojo that both of their teachers use, and my daughter's guitar teacher uses to say that, oh well, at this benchmark in the day where homework is due, your child did turn in their homework, or your child is behaving today. And so that I'm kind of like mentally prepping of what I have to do at the end of the day when I get home. If they didn't turn in their homework, well, where is it? And like find it, or if they weren't behaving, what strategies am I going to use to get them back on track? And this is not even being at school, and I kind of have a sense of how they're doing without me being there.
Great. And I'm sure there will be tons of more questions at the in-person session. So we are almost ready to close out this session. Is there anything anyone wants to say before we do that?
I guess I could say one more thing, unless
Mm-hmm.
everybody needs to go. Uh, one thing that because I'm in STEM because I love science, and one thing that I did early on was when I was able to actually do this, I started volunteering at my son's school. So my oldest son went to a bilingual school. It was Spanish-English immersion. And with the help of my friend Nadia Fernandez, who's also in the biomedical engineering program, she's from Bolivia and she speaks Spanish much better than I do. So it was really helpful because I was able to do a bilingual science class for the kids. They did an enrichment program after school. So this would be about an hour to an hour and a half after school. I had 8 to 20 kids, anywhere from K through 3. And it was so much fun. But it was a little stressful because I'd always have to try to come up with a new experiment every week and something that would be fun for the kids. And what I learned is that, one, kids really like physics experiments that are like big body experiments. Like you can take a lever and make it like the most fun thing for the kids. We ended up building a trebuchet. I made a lever so that the kids could all lift me up just by standing on one end, just by moving where the fulcrum was. And the kids, I mean, they loved it. And having it in Spanish too, I thought was really neat because we were able to sort of target a different group here that's pretty common in New Mexico. And I mean, it was a blast. So being able to do some of these outreach things has been really fun for me, and it's sort of been my way of sort of connecting with the community as well, because I didn't get into STEM because I had any sort of STEM influence. My father's an engineer, but he did a bunch of classified stuff. I don't even know what he did. I really wasn't into science until I went to school and just took so many classes that I was running out of stuff, and then I found out, oh, I like biochemistry. And but I know now that if I were exposed to it earlier, I probably would have been on a faster track. Like I'd already be a professor maybe by now, if I was smart enough. So these are, I guess, trying to connect with the kids is really fun. Just trying to show them how science is really exciting, and you can do so many cool experiments. So, yeah.
Thanks, Paul. Any others? No? Yes? Okay. Um, all right. Well, again, we will be meeting the first week of April, and we'll send that to you all to get an idea of when that will be. And for those that are listening or watching, take some notes, find some questions that we didn't ask, and we'll give you a chance to ask those questions in April. and you get to meet all of these fantastic people then too. I think that's all from our end. Okay. Thanks everyone, and hope you all have a good day. I can't wait to meet you all in person.
Thank you.
Thank you.